Hi everybody, it's Julie for EllenHutson.com, and today I'm going to be doing a coffee-themed card. I am playing around with the Latte Love Set, which I adore. It's such a cute one, but I wanted to create a little bit more of a sophisticated card with a black and white coffee theme. So I've grabbed some watercolor paper, and this is Canson XL, and I've cut it down. This is like half of a quarter sheet or a standard A2, so I cut it in half. And then this will enable me to mount that cup. This is the top-down view of the coffee cup to the lid. I'm going to ink up with some VersaFine Nocturne, which is a black pigment ink. And then I'm going to stamp it a couple times. So I get 2 coffee cups because I figure if I'm going to do this, I might as well do a couple. So in case I screw up, I've got an extra. I got a spare coffee cup. So I'm going to pour some clear detail embossing powder. This one's by Wow over the top of that, and just go ahead and emboss both of these cups. And I like to toss it into a little paper plate here that has kind of a lip around the edge there so it doesn't get away from me. And then I'm preheated my heat gun for about 30 seconds, and I went ahead and heated both those cups, so they're nicely embossed. And now I'm going to switch colors. So I've grabbed a Sentiment. This one's Thanks a Latte from the same set. And I'm going to mount that back to the center there of that cup. And I'm going to ink up with some Versamark ink because I'm going to be using a different color of embossing powder. So initially when I stamped the cup, it was black pigment ink with clear embossing powder over the top. Now I'm using a clear embossing ink, which is Versamark, and then I'm going to put white detail embossing powder over the top of that. This one's by Stampendous, but there are a number of other white detail embossing powders, and I'll link to those in the description. Now I did have to preheat my heat gun for about 30 seconds so that I could come in very quickly and carefully heat just those words because I don't want to reheat the embossed cups and end up, like frying that previous embossing into the watercolor paper. So you do want to be careful when you're doing that. But now because it's been embossed, I can take some Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. This one's a nice dark brown, and I just hug the embossing lines when I lay down my strokes of color, and I don't want to get too crazy because this is a really dark saturated color. And then I'm going to go ahead and blend that out with my water brush. And because I embossed that sentiment there in white, it's going to resist and kind of resemble, like a foam art, and you can do this with the other images and characters in the set. So to add some dimension to this cup, one of my favorite things to do is to take some of these other markers that are in the soft, paler shades. And again, I'm still working with the Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. And this color is vanilla. And I'm just kind of going around and adding some color there, just a little bit. I won't need to blend it out with the water brush because it's such a pale color. And then to add some shading, I've grabbed this blue haze. It's a really nice, kind of a grayish blue. And I'm going around the base of the cup and anywhere else I think in real life I would have some shading to indicate, this is a 3D effect. Now, there are other ways that you could create this, but I just wanted to do it with my markers and have it all done and keep it, for the most part, one level because then I don't have to bulk up my card by layering too many things. Now, I'm going to set that aside and work on the card front, and this is a square or an A2 panel of Essentials by Ellen. Ebony cardstock. Is it ebony or is it nocturne? It's black. It's a deep, rich black, and I love it because it's a nice dark black. And then I prepped that with an anti-static patch because I'm going to be doing some embossing on that, and I really do not want that powder sticking in stray spots. So now that I've got some washi tape on the back side of that, it's going to anchor it down onto my MISTI platform. And the reason I did this is I want to be able to bleed off the edges, and I can't use the magnets to hold that quarter sheet in place on the platform. So I'm just going to anchor it there with the washi tape, and I'm just creating a random pattern. I'm rotating the cup, and I'm using again Versamark ink, which is a clear embossing ink, and then I'm going to pour that detail white powder over the top of this, and I have to hold this really carefully so that I don't smudge that embossing powder and just kind of get that whole thing coated nicely. But inevitably, especially because it's winter and you've got a lot of static cling, there's still always a few little grains that will stick. So I have this really teeny tiny paintbrush I like to use to get in there and get a couple of those stray speckles of embossing powder off that panel. And then I'm going to go ahead, preheat my heat gun again, and come in and heat emboss all those images. And the paper plate works spiffy for that so that I don't burn my fingers. Now I'm going to take this is a Swiffer cloth, and I like to use it to buff off any of that residual anti-static powder because I want my cardstock to be a nice rich black. So that powder kind of sticks on there until you buff it off with something. So that's a nice soft cloth to use. Those Swiffer things come in handy. Good not just for sweeping your floor. So now I'm going to take that panel, and I've got an A2 card here. This is Nina Solar White 80 pound, and I put some foam adhesive on the back of that. And I partially put it on the black panel, and then I also put it on the white panel because I didn't want to have any of it overhanging by mistake and then end up cutting through it and wasting it. I hate when I waste a product. So it's like, I try to be careful and conscientious about where I'm putting my foam adhesive so I'm not whacking off any and wasting it. So now normally I take my big long blade scissors and whack off those edges, but I decided to try using my tonic paper trimmer. To be honest, it worked, but I can do it faster with a pair of long blade scissors and just bump them up against the edge of the card there and just plow right through it. And I don't ever have any issues with it, but some people do, but I never have a problem with it. But you could try using your paper trimmer because you're really only cutting through that one thickness. Now I did coat my cup there with some glossy accents, and it did dilute the coloring and shading that I put down there. So it's very pale and it was hard to pick up on camera. But I think it's a really great way to get dimension on a two-dimensional piece of art. I hope you enjoyed this and you'll give it a shot, and thanks for watching.